begin in Beirut. Once again, Israeli airstrikes targeting the Lebanese capital. There had been 3 days of relative quiet there after the intensity of the bombing campaign that stepped up across Lebanon since the 1st of October when IDF troops started its incursion in the south of the country. Well, there have been strikes elsewhere today, the north, west and south of the country in the past few hours too. There's also been missile attacks from Hezbollah fighters, the Iranian-backed Lebanese militants, into the north of Israel. News emerging too in the past few hours, the prime ministerial home of Benjamin Netanyahu targeted by drones as well. His office say he and his wife weren't present in Caesarea at the time. Well, there have been no details of whether or not he was at the property. Let's bring in Norris Trent. Let's find out what's been going on in Beirut today and the intensity of it. Great to have you on the programme this evening, Catherine. Just talk us through developments in the past few hours.
Good evening, Gavin. Well, in the past few hours, we've seen and heard ourselves strikes on the southern suburbs of Beirut, which lie behind me, the stronghold of the militant group Dahia. Some taking place around 5 p.m. this afternoon, a number of strikes in quick succession. We were on a hilltop overlooking that area at the time and saw the plumes of smoke rise up. Now, the Israeli military on Twitter shortly beforehand had put out these evacuation orders, as it does, telling people to get out of that area because they said they were going to be targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. These are the first strikes on Beirut in some 3 days. It has been somewhat quieter in recent times, but you know, the bombings, the strikes are continuing across the country, especially in the south, where there have been more targeted strikes apparently reported around the town of Nabatea, and of course along the blue line which separates Israel from Lebanon. Also, Hezbollah says it's been firing rockets into northern Lebanon there, and there were reports earlier today of this drone which was flown and somehow got through Israeli air defences near one of the residences of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister's office says he's not been hurt. He's since been out pictured walking in a park. We haven't had any response on Hezbollah from that, but it shows that this, continuing back and forth across the border is continuing, and in other areas of Lebanon too. Deadly strikes reported in the Bekaa Valley in the east. Lebanese media saying a number of casualties there, but they're reporting perhaps including another mayor of a town in the Bekaa Valley. That still remains to be concerned, but there's not been a let-up in the fighting. If anything, today was a pretty heavy day for strikes, some here in Beirut, but also in other areas of the country.
Now, in the past few days and weeks since October the 1st, the intensity of people leaving has been astounding. I've had lots of messages from contacts I've had previously from times in Lebanon, people who've moved and left, have fled in some way with their children. Just talk us through the intensity of the situation that people are facing, the amount of displaced in Lebanon now too.
The numbers of people who've been displaced, who are displaced in Lebanon, are huge. Some reports say, over 1.2 million people. That's coming up to a quarter of the country's population, in a country which is already home to many displaced Syrians, of course. A lot of people are still fleeing areas in the south or in the Bekaa Valley. We went filming in the town of Sidon, which is south of here, and people there who'd been fleeing areas further towards the border as those Israeli strikes continue. Some of them told us they had their houses completely destroyed, so they're not sure when, if ever, they'll be able to go home. Others saying that they were just getting too scared now. So what you've got is, in places like Sidon and here in Beirut, a lot of people who've arrived all of a sudden from the south, from the Bekaa Valley, looking for places to stay. Some of them are sleeping in schools still. Some of them are sleeping in any public place they can find, camping out on the streets. We were talking with people who basically are now living in and around one of Beirut's most famous nightclubs. So it just shows, there's been an outpouring of solidarity. People telling us that's waning slightly in the past weeks, and some tensions perhaps growing about how this influx of people it's going to affect Lebanon's neighborhoods, and how basically people are scared of some of the people who've been coming from the south because they don't want any risk of any, well, I suppose, infiltration from people who are being targeted by Israel, and they don't want that danger coming to their doorsteps as well. So this has been an outpouring of solidarity, but it's also sparking some tensions too, and that's starting to be a feeling that's growing here.
Catherine, great to talk to you. Great analysis as always. And I will have a special report from you tomorrow. We'll speak to you then. Catherine Norris Trent, our senior reporter in Beirut.